Hi everyone and welcome to my channel and to this time-lapse version of a very sweet little baby boy in soft pastel. I hope that you enjoy the speeded up version here. Also do check out all of my other content here on YouTube, and then if you'd like to learn even more, this piece will be released as a real-time tutorial series over on my Patreon channel. I've already got tons of tutorial videos over there for you to get started in soft pastel. So I'm working on Pastelmat paper, one of my absolute favourite papers to work on, and I'm using a mixture of soft pastels, mostly my favourite Unison soft pastels. There is a Terry Ludwig involved, and of course I'm using a variety of pastel pencils as well for this. So a mixture of ingredients going into this piece. And it's not often that I get to paint people. I'm often painting animals and furry things. So it's a real treat when I do get a lovely photo reference on my easel. And this one was no exception. Such a sweet little face. And I absolutely loved the unusual pose in this piece. So I do an unusual thing for me here, which is starting over at the right side of the painting. Normally I work mostly from top to bottom and from left to right, as that just always gives me somewhere to lean my hand and not smudge the work. But in this case, I really wanted to start with the face and work my way across the body. And because the piece is quite small, I was always able to lean my hand on that area just below the baby. So I make plenty of use of the pastel pencils in human portraits. I find that they're excellent for the smallest of details, especially around the eyes and the other features on the face. But I also find that they're great for helping me to blend the colours together and create really soft and smooth skin tones, especially for baby portraits where the skin is so soft and smooth and there's that lovely baby shine to the skin tones. So I do make use of the pastel pencils a lot, and you'll also see me coming in with a soft blender which is made by a company called Soft with 2 F's. I'll add some links in the description below where you can have a look or purchase all of the materials that I'm using. But I love those soft tools which you can see flashing up every so often. They're excellent for blending the pigment in places where my fingertips are just a bit too big, because I do a lot of blending with my fingertips normally. But sometimes when I want to blend a very small little area, those tools are just the job. And I can really use those blenders to almost mix the pigment on the paper. So I'll put the marks down mostly with the bigger soft sticks, and then I can always come in and almost paint with those soft tools. I'm really just moving the pigment around, mixing and blending and softening the whole effect. And something that I'm going to be talking about lots in my Patreon tutorial series from this piece will of course be the colours that I use to create the skin tones. So you might think with a baby that you need to keep it really light and bright, but you really need to look at what's happening in your photo reference. In this case, I've probably gone surprisingly dark on some of the areas of the skin tones. But if you don't go dark enough in certain areas, then those lovely highlighted areas won't really stand out. So it can surprise you sometimes just how dark you need to go with skin tones, especially for skin that's in the shadows. And much of this baby is in the shade. You can just see the top part of the face and that highlighted area that's catching the light. You'll see that it runs right down the arm and the whole body. But to create that lighting effect, it means going pretty dark in some other areas that are in shade. And that's something I'm always talking about in my tutorials, whether it's a people portrait or animal or landscape or still life. It doesn't matter, it's all the same. You're looking at where the light is coming from, and you're trying to go dark enough in your shadow areas so that the highlights really have some punch. So I really loved this pose. Such a gleeful little face on this boy, and having a good little chew at his finger. So I'm being careful here not to lean on the face. I'm really anchoring my hand on that unworked area just below the baby. So even when it looks like I'm leaning on the face, I'm really not. I'm trying to avoid leaning on any part of the work that I've already done. So again, working my way down the arm and looking at just how much of the arm is actually in the shadows. And just that lovely bit of light along the top of the arm. Another interesting aspect to this tutorial series will of course be the clothing. So we've got a little white bib on here, but you'll notice that I don't use any white in this area. It's all light blue tones. Of course, this part of the bib is in the shade. So just like with the skin tones, you're trying to think of how to make the shadow areas really look like shadow areas. And although I try to limit my use of pure black sometimes, especially in something like a baby portrait, that area right along the base of the baby where he touches the floor underneath him, it really is dark in there. So if I want that area to look nice and rich and dark, I did need to use my pure black in those areas. And then of course those beautiful rich Unison blue pastels. But bringing in little highlights of green and purple. When you're looking at something, try to see what other colors you can see in there. So if it's a blue shirt, see if you can find any other colors that might be reflecting on it. So at this stage, I had a look at some other photo references that my client sent me, and in some of them you could see this little blurred outstretched hand reaching for the toes. Now the leg is also quite blurry, leaving just mainly the face and the arm that's closest to us in focus. So I decided at this point that I felt like the composition really needed this extra little arm reaching. So it felt like a risky thing to do to add it in afterwards on top of the background colour, but I really felt that it was necessary, so I went for it. Because it's quite out of focus, I'm creating really soft edges by blending it lots into the background colour. Again, using those lovely sponge applicators made by Soft. They're great for softening the edges of things where my finger's just a little bit too big. So I didn't have to go into much detail on the foot or the little hand that's reaching in the background. Hopefully I added just enough colour and detail to make it work. One of the things I really love about soft pastel is the slightly blurry effect that you can create, and therefore making quite a photographic effect in your painting. I hope that you've enjoyed seeing this time-lapse version come together, and if you're interested in painting people or animals, that you'll consider joining me over on Patreon. I'll add links to my Patreon channel and to all of the materials that I've used in this piece and where you can purchase them in the description below. And I hope that I can help you lots more with your own progression in soft pastel. But thanks again for watching here, and until next time, happy pasteling.